Hello everyone, my name is Sophia Huddleston and today I will be showing you my presentation about human-caused climate change. So climate change is one of the biggest environmental challenges facing the world today. Throughout this presentation, I'll explain what human-caused climate change is, how the greenhouse effect and the carbon cycle work, how fossil fuels contribute to climate change and some of the impacts it has on ecosystems and human health. I'll also discuss a few technologies that can help reduce carbon emissions before ending with my personal reflection and discussion question. So, I'm going to start by talking about the science behind climate change. Before we discuss how climate change happens, it's important to understand what human caused climate change actually means. Human caused climate change refers to the long term changes in Earth's climate that are mainly caused by human activities, such as burning fossil fuels, deforestation, and pollution. These activities release greenhouse gases, including carbon dioxide, into the atmosphere. You can think of the greenhouse gases like a blanket around the Earth. They trap some of the heat that would normally escape into space, helping keep the planet warm enough to support life. However, when too many greenhouse gases build up in the atmosphere, they trap more heat than normal. This causes Earth's average temperature to increase over time. As temperatures continue to rise, climate change can affect weather patterns, damage ecosystems, and impact human health around the world. Now that we defined human caused climate change, let's take a closer look at the greenhouse effect and how it works. The greenhouse effect is a natural process and is necessary for the earth to sustain life on our planet. It begins when solar radiation from the sun reaches Earth's surface. The Earth absorbs some of this energy, which warms the planet. As the Earth warms, it releases heat back toward the atmosphere. Greenhouse gases such as the carbon dioxide, methane, and water vapor trap some of the heat and prevent it from escaping into space. This natural process helps keep Earth's temperature warm enough for plants, animals, and humans to survive. Without the greenhouse effect, Earth would be much colder and the life as we know it would not be possible. The enhanced greenhouse effect occurs when human activities such as burning fossil fuels and deforestation add extra greenhouse gases to the atmosphere. These additional greenhouse gases trap more heat than normal, allowing less heat to escape into space. As a result, Earth's average temperature continues to rise, contributing to climate change. As you can see on this slide, the image on the left represents a natural greenhouse effect, which is essential for supporting life on Earth. The image on the right shows the enhanced greenhouse effect, where human activities increase greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, causing more heat to become trapped and leading to a warmer planet. Now that we covered how the greenhouse effects works, let's take a look at another important natural process called the carbon cycle and how it helps regulate carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Now that we talked about the greenhouse effect, let's look at another important process called the carbon cycle. The carbon cycle is a natural movement of carbon through Earth's atmosphere, land, oceans, and living organisms. Carbon is constantly moving from one place to another, helping keep the environment in balance. According to the OpenStax biology textbook in Nakazawa's 2020 review, plants absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere during photosynthesis and use it to grow. Animals eat plants and release carbon dioxide back into the carbon atmosphere through respiration. When plants and animals die, decomposers break them down and return carbon to the soil and the atmosphere. The oceans also absorb and store large amounts of carbon dioxide, helping regulate the amount of carbon in the atmosphere. Scientists have measured atmospheric carbon dioxide levels for many years, and these measurements show that carbon dioxide has continued to increase as humans burn more fossil fuels. These measurements help them understand how carbon moves through Earth systems and how human activities are affecting the natural balance. This diagram shows carbon moving through between the atmospheric plants, animals, the soil, and the oceans. The arrows represent the continuous movement of carbon through these different parts of Earth system. Now that we looked at how the carbon cycle normally works, let's see what happens when humans burn fossil fuels and disrupts this natural process. Now that we looked at how the carbon cycle normally works, let's discuss how fossil fuels disrupt this natural process. According to Nakazawa's 2020 review, fossil fuels such as coal, oil, and natural gas contain carbon that have been stored underground for millions of years. When we burn these fuels to produce electricity, power vehicles, and support industries, that stored carbon is released in the atmosphere as carbon dioxide. Normally, plants in ocean absorb some of the carbon dioxide through photosynthesis and other natural processes. However, humans are releasing carbon dioxide much faster than these natural systems can remove it. As a result, carbon dioxide builds up in the atmosphere. In other words, carbon moves from the underground fossil fuels into the atmosphere and into living systems such as plants or into the oceans. Humans have altered the natural carbon cycle by releasing carbon into the atmosphere much faster than these natural systems can absorb it. The increase in carbon dioxide strengthens the greenhouse effect by trapping more heat, which contributes to global climate change. Scientists have measured rising carbon dioxide levels over time, showing how human activities have altered the natural carbon cycle. The arrows in this diagram show how carbon naturally or normally moves through the environment. The large arrows from the fossil fuels to the atmosphere represent the extra carbon dioxide released when humans burn fossil fuels, which disrupt the natural carbon cycle. Now that we discussed how humans contribute to climate change, let's look at the ecological effects that have already been observed. According to the Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change, or the IPCC, one major ecological effect is coral bleaching. As ocean temperatures continue to rise, coral reefs become stressed and begin to lose the tiny algae that live inside them. These algae provide corals with both their food and their color. Without them, the corals turn white, which is why this process is called coral bleaching. If ocean temperatures remain too warm for a long period of time, the corals eventually die. Another ecological effect is that many plants and animals are changing where they live. As temperatures increase, some species are moving toward cooler climates or to the higher elevations where conditions are more suitable for survival. Scientists observe these changes in migration patterns of where different species are found. These changes can affect ecosystems because animals and plants depend on one another for food and survival. These examples show that climate change is not only affecting temperatures, but it is also changing ecosystems and the habitats that many species depend on. Next, I'll discuss how climate change can also affect human health. Climate change doesn't just affect the environment, it also has a direct impact on human health. According to the World Health Organization, one major health impact of the climate change is an increase in heat-related illnesses and deaths. As average temperatures continue to rise, heat waves are becoming more frequent and more intense. These conditions increase the risk of heat exhaustion and heat stroke, especially for older adults, young children, and people who work outdoors for long periods of time. Another important health impact is poorer air quality. Higher temperatures can increase the amount of ground level ozone, which is a harmful type of air pollution. Poor air quality can make it hard for people to breathe and can worsen conditions such as asthma and other lung diseases. People with existing respiratory conditions are often the most affected. These examples show that climate change is not only an environmental issue, but also a public health issue that affects communities around the world. Next, I'll discuss two technologies that can help reduce gas emissions and slow the effects of climate change. Finally, I'd like to talk about two technologies that can help reduce the impacts of climate change. According to the United Nations, the first is renewable energy, such as solar and wind power. These technologies generate electricity using energy from the sun and wind instead of burning fossil fuels. Because they produce little to no greenhouse gas emissions during operation, they help reduce carbon emissions and decrease our dependence on fossil fuels. One limitation is that solar and wind energy depend on weather conditions, and additional energy storage systems are often needed to provide electricity when the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing. The second technology is carbon capture. According to Zeh Edatar and Zendebude, 2025 review, carbon capture works by collecting carbon dioxide before it's released into the atmosphere from power plants and industrial facilities. The captured carbon dioxide is then transported and stored deep underground, helping reduce greenhouse gas emissions. One limitation of carbon capture is that it's still expensive to build and operate, and is not yet widely available in many parts of the world. Although these technologies cannot solve climate change on their own, there are important tools that can help reduce greenhouse gas emissions and slow the effects of climate change when used alongside other solutions. Next, I'll share my personal reflection after learning about this topic in Biology 101. Before taking Biology 101, I knew that climate change was happening, but I didn't fully understand the science behind it or how human activities contribute to it. I mostly heard about it through the news and social media, but I never really understood how it all connected. After learning about the greenhouse effect and the carbon cycle, I now understand how burning fossil fuels increases greenhouse gases and disrupts Earth's natural systems. Researching this presentation also helped me see how climate change affects ecosystems, human health, and the environment as a whole. Overall, this project helped me better understand the science behind climate change and why it's considered one of the biggest environmental challenges we face today. Next, I'll like to leave you with a discussion question. To conclude my presentation, I'd like to leave you with a question to think about. After learning the causes and impacts of climate change, as well as some of the technologies that can help reduce greenhouse emissions, what do you think is the most effective way to reduce the impact of climate change and why? There are many possible solutions, including using more renewable energy, improving technology, making changes in our daily lives, and creating environmental policies. I'm interested in hearing your thoughts and seeing which solutions you believe would have the greatest impact. Thank you for listening to my presentation.